welcome to Conversations for the Future, Energy and Space. My name is Lee Steinke, and I'm the producer of this event for Foundation for the Future and our many inspiring partners. Conversation for the Future is a nonpartisan conversation about space infrastructure development near Earth between now and 2030. Foundation for the Future is dedicated to the creation of a public-private partnership for space infrastructure development. To learn more, please visit our website at www.f4f.space or reach out to any one of our team members on your screen. I have the pleasure of introducing our morning speakers today, beginning with our co-founders who will kick off today's event. Tim Chrisman is Executive Director and co-founder of Foundation for the Future. A former CIA and Army intelligence officer, Tim supported the National Space Council and the Joint Staff at the Pentagon. He holds master's degrees in intelligence studies and international relations and affairs, both from American University. Mr. Chrisman is the author of the book Humanity in Space and of various articles about the expanse of our civilization in space. Tim's next challenge and mission is to make space accessible, survivable, and ultimately routine enough to be boring. Tim?
Thanks, Lee. Yeah, so I'm coming to you from Akron, Ohio, where we're taking conversations on the road. Last month was our first on the road event where we go to towns across America that are emblematic of America's past, that led a certain facet of our economic or social growth, and who are otherwise left behind. Too often when we talk about underprivileged and underserved communities, we don't think of those communities that were once vibrant centers of commerce and industry, like Scranton last month, Akron this. And so I'm excited to be here today talking to you all from Akron, Ohio, the former rubber capital of the world, and now home to one of the fastest growing renewable energy sectors in America. So I'm talking to you from the Glendale Steps. These are a public works project from the Great Depression era that we chose in part because they're called steps to nowhere. You can't see, but I am looking out over literally nothing. There are trees, but they're $20,000 worth of carved stone steps going down a hill here that were done as a project during the Great Depression to give jobs. And the idea was to allow Akron residents to access two sides of this hill. It wasn't terribly useful because, as I mentioned earlier, they are to nowhere. There's a cemetery on one end and a parking lot on the other. But the point of them was there's a need for infrastructure. How can we do it? And in the Great Depression, where so many people were out of work and there was a desire to just buy jobs, this was the sort of project that was considered good and worth it. And so now as we as a country are starting to talk again about major infrastructure investments, there's a desire to ensure that those investments don't go to stairs like this, to bridges to nowhere. I grew up in Alaska, and so I know a little bit about wasted infrastructure projects. And so we're here this month to talk about energy and space. And one of the infrastructure investments that has a phenomenal track record of investment return and is also quite likely the key to unlocking not only the US's economic and energy independence future, but quite likely unlocking our ability to lead the world in solving global crises, whether it's humanitarian disasters, climate change, or really you name it. If we are able to deliver energy from space to the ground, it changes everything. So as I mentioned, I'm here in Akron. It's one of those left behind, sort of underserved communities. Right now, its unemployment rate is about twice what the rest of the US is. Its expected growth rate over the next 10 years is about 10% less than the rest of the US. And it's not because of any structural weakness. Ohio, and specifically Northeastern Ohio, have been leaders in the aerospace industry since the Wright brothers. Pieces of the Apollo lander were made just around the corner here at a Goodrich and Goodyear factory. And the workforce here is well educated, is skilled, has access to the international logistics chain, but somehow it's left out. Somehow it's growing slowly. And so our message here, as we've presented it to the Scranton Chamber of Commerce, to the Scranton Mayor's Office and school districts, is the space economy offers a chance for Akron to come back and be the leader for the next century of manufacturing and aerospace development. Historically, Akron was known as the rubber capital of the world, back when tires were king. Last night I ate at a spaghetti factory, spaghetti warehouse, I think it was called. Turns out it was not actually a warehouse of spaghetti. I was exceptionally disappointed. It's an old tire warehouse. And those are scattered all over town. You don't need that sort of manufacturing or warehouse capability anymore. For the most part, that's been outsourced. But that expertise in making polymers and advanced materials is critical to unlocking new forms of space vehicles, new and advanced solar panels, and new ways of interacting with everyday things like our cars and, yes, even our tires. So ironically enough, Akron's expertise in polymers and advanced materials may allow it to once again use some of those abandoned warehouses for tires. But these ones that are supplanted with space age technology like they used for the space shuttle and others, whether it's graphene, carbon nanotubes, or other advanced composites, they have a chance to put themselves back on the map. And that's what we want to help do here. So if you're a speaker and you're talking today, think about how is it Akron can use what I'm talking about? How is it they can make this? How is it the workforce here in Akron, consisting of well-educated, whether with trade schools or undergraduate degrees, who are excited about revitalizing their economy, how can they play? We're having a business plan competition where teams are submitting ideas for new and exciting opportunities in space. If you're one of those teams, can you make it here? If not, why not? There may be a good reason. You may need access to the ocean. But if not, is there something Akron could do to win you over? Because at the end of the day, we want to be able to deliver to this town a roadmap to revitalization, not one based on useless platitudes about how in 5 more minutes they'll grow up and be real kids like Pinocchio or something. But instead, how can they be useful contributors in the broader space economy and America's future? So think about that. If you're a participant, think about what is it that you're hearing today, and how could that apply to your town? Maybe you grew up in a small town like me. I grew up in Alaska, middle of nowhere. I often think about how could the space economy play in my town? As a kid, I was positive there was no way it could. In the middle of Alaska, it's cold all the time. We didn't even have power or water all the time. So there was no way we were launching space shuttles or helping build new rockets. But now as I look back, I realize whether analog astronaut training facilities the ability to adapt, innovate, and overcome, or just the isolated nature of my home gave the people I grew up with an inherent advantage if they ever wanted to play in the space economy. My neighbor growing up is now the county mayor. And I've talked with him recently about how our county, almost wholly dependent on the military frontier town, vibrantly participating in space. I haven't convinced him yet, and I plan on using footage from this event, which is in a town about the same size as our whole entire county, to show him, look, Bryce, we built forts as kids growing up. We carved ditches in, cut logs together. We know what it's like to build basic infrastructure. Now, granted, we were 13 years old, and so basic infrastructure had a different meaning. But at the same time, we knew we have a general sense. Space needs that. Space needs people who are able to figure it out, to build it. And I'm excited to be looking for those people where they live, places like Akron. So once again, thank you for being here today. This is our first Conversations for the Future event. Lila's going to talk more about sort of the structure and mechanism of how we're doing these events, why, and sort of, what is it that makes these special? But a lot of it's in the name. This isn't meant to be a monologue to you, although that is exactly what I'm doing now. It's meant to be a conversation where we talk, you talk, and we find out, do the speakers here truly have the best ideas, or do they need to run into some more to improve themselves? How can we learn from you as much as you learn from us? So thank you for being here. And I'd like to hand it back to Lila, who will probably tell me I need to go for several more minutes, which is okay.
Not at all. Not at all. That was great, Tim. Thank you. And I don't think you could have picked a better backdrop. That's spectacular. It's both visually stunning and appropriate.
Yeah, I didn't. This was entirely Ashley, who's running the local ground game here. I'm standing on the X where she told me to stand. So this is where I would have stood facing a tree or something.
Yeah, come on now.
Come on, Ashley.
All right. Well, I will pass it back to Lee, who I think will then intro me, and then I'll, probably intro someone else and go from there. But Lee, before I start, I just wanted to call you out on something. Last month, you did promise that you would show up in Princess Leia hair today.
Yes, I am working on that. Amazon is a little bit late with a delivery. I'm hoping it will get here by the end of today.
Oh my gosh, I'm on pins and needles. I can't wait to see that. Thank you.